Busting plateaus near your genetic potential. Hey everyone, I'm John Jewett with J3U University. We elevate physique education. And today we're going to continue our series on busting through plateaus once you've kind of reached that slow part of your career, moving from intermediate to advanced, where progress just doesn't come along quite as quickly. Now, if you haven't caught part 2, I started talking forever and just about using resistance profiles and adjusting those to milk more out of every set. Please go check out that video and make sure you're on par there, because a few things I'm just going to recap pretty quickly, but we're going to jump right in. So just to do a brief recap just of what I did talk about is that, hey, once you're moving from advanced lifter, you're going to have to see now progress might be coming on your lifting every few months. And by every few months, like maybe you still could add 2 pounds, 2 to 5 pounds on your like compound lifts as you're progressing up, or you might be using the micro plates, right? Maybe a rep gained on an isolation exercise, it just comes very, very slow and not so often. But remember, as first things first, is you need to address recovery and optimize this. This is also part of becoming more advanced. It's not just using advanced training techniques. It's also using advanced recovery techniques, which is just getting a lot better at the basics is really what it comes down to. If you're not already yet, make sure you're tracking your logbook, as this is going to be important for you to assess your progress and if your program is designed correctly to drive adaptation, or also if you're under recovering. But I covered this slide more in depth in our last lecture, so please make sure to look back at that. Now, what I wanted to cover today as far as the next step in programming to look at, and again, the idea here is making sure that we're able to pull every bit of stimulus from every set that we do. And I like to think of this as becoming a performance-based bodybuilder. And so we're going to kind of get beyond just the bro of the past, the old school bodybuilding. Man, we're just chasing the pump. If you get a good pump for the day, had a good workout. We're actually trying to get to where I'm looking at is what we know creates hypertrophy is mechanical tension on the muscle. So how can I improve that throughout my training? And doing so, I am trying to focus on every set that I do, creating the most tension as possible. So this also means not carrying a lot of fatigue on a set to set basis. So if I'm doing a set of bench press and then I do another set, then another set, another set, what do I do between these sets to make them more ideal, to where if I'm doing 315 on the bench press, I do start at 10 sets, and then by my last set, I'm only doing 2 reps. Well, the volume load, the load times the reps times the sets, is starting to get down. And I ideally want to have a high volume load, because think about this. If you're able to do 315 for sets of 10 and you never got tired, right? You just did 4 sets of 10, you nailed 315 every time, and they were to failure for some reason, your reps aren't dropping off because you're just amazing. That would be a lot more stimulating for muscle growth than if you were dropping off, your muscles are fatigued, and you can't output as much. They just simply can't get as much tension exposure. So I'm looking at this from a performance standpoint of throughout my programming, in my one session and also across my weekly sessions, how can I move around my exercises or even my sets to get the most performance out of every single set that I do. This isn't just locally, but also mentally too. Like you might have to consideration, like, hey, if I squat, then I do this next exercise, like my RDL, like my RDL is crap. So maybe I should move my RDL to a different day. So this is the idea of being performance-based. But here's one thing I wanted to introduce to you is using the idea of combo sets. So these are paired 2 exercises back to back for different non-overlapping muscle groups. So this example here would be doing like a tricep extension to a cable lateral raise, right? So it's a completely different muscle. There's no overlap. There's no crossover to where there's going to be a drop off of fatigue. Traditional superset is like a tricep extension into a close grip bench press. What's going to happen to your close grip bench press after you do a tricep extension? Your ability to perform on your close grip bench press is going to go down. Now we could get into pre-fatiguing and what all that means. That's a little bit for a different lecture. But if a muscle is already fatigued, what we do see in the literature is that all the muscle fibers won't be able to recruit efficiently and be exposed to the same amount of tension. And so your sets become less effective doing training like that. It has its application. Don't take me wrong there. But again, we want to make sure we're able to uphold as much performance throughout our sets as possible. So if you think about this, if you had a tricep extension and you do another set of tricep extensions a minute later, likely you're going to see some performance drop off. Now, here's the other situation. Instead, we wait a minute, we do a lateral raise, we wait a minute, then we come back to our tricep extension. We now had 3 minutes between our tricep extension versus 1 minute before. Do you think you're going to be able to perform better on your tricep extension? We'll try it out. But the answer is yes, you absolutely would. And this is exactly how I implement a lot of my training currently. So some benefits here is that, for one, improved performance across your sets, higher quality volume with less fatigue. So they show this, that not doing sets in just succession like that would allow less fatigue to build up, and even systemically, because you're able to kind of spread out the fatigue as you're doing these workouts. And also, it's very time efficient in your workouts. It's ideal if you have a busy schedule to do this like this. And you can even shorten your rest times between these. Not quite how you would do like a superset, doing immediately into the next set. Take some rest. Just make sure you have like some general preparedness for the set. So not trying to be gassed out for the set. And this is why I think it applies really well to isolation exercises, as you don't need a lot of recovery for an isolation exercise. Now, for upper body exercises, this is a little bit different. And also you have to consider, like, it could be more time efficient. However, it could also be problematic if you're in a really busy gym and someone takes your equipment. So how might we structure this and put this together to have application? Well, I'd say if you're going to do an upper session, there is the idea that you could put all your push workouts together, right? You could do a flat bench into an incline press, then you go on to do your back work. Another idea to this is, like, rather than doing paired sets, maybe it's just more paired exercises, right? Combo exercises. So we could do a dumbbell bench press into a lat pull down. So while we're doing our lat pull down, we're kind of dropping off some fatigue from our pressing. Systemically, we might be accumulating some though. So there's kind of a trade-off there. But in general, we should be able to output better once we come back to our second pressing movement. So then we could come to our incline machine press. Then we move to our chest supported row. So we're rotating back and forth between pushing and pulling muscle groups. Now, this really also should come down to what your individual focus is as well for where you're starting. Because generally, where you start for your session, you're going to have the best stimulus, and everything after there could have some fatigue present, and you won't be able to perform as adequately as you were previously. So if chest is a focal point, put your chest press first. If back is a focus point, put your lat pull down first. Then you could go to your press. Then you could go to your next press, or to your row, and so on. Now, after your main movements, you could do combo sets. You can even set this up as a circuit. So I like doing this even with 3 different exercises, where you could have a pec fly, a reverse fly, and a bicep curl. Like, all these exercises have no interference between one another. So you could do a pec fly, you could do a curl, then you could do a reverse fly, and just keep running through that circuit. If you're worried about people taking your equipment, set up at your reverse fly, your pec deck fly, bring your dumbbells over to your station, and you just camp out there and you run through your entire circuit just like that. Or an example, this could be at a cable station. You're doing a tricep extension, you lower your cable down, you do your bicep curl, raise your cable back up, do your tricep extension, rather than just go through all of your tricep extensions all at first. So this is just one way to program this. And the same thing could be done on a lower body session too, that I really like. I've structured to where if I had a squat, then a lot of times you go to your leg press, then maybe you go to your hamstring curl. Well, what I like to do is do my squat, then I'll do my hamstring curl. So I can get some of this like systemic break from squatting. I can train the hamstrings. It's not going to take away from my leg press. It also lets me dissipate a little bit of fatigue off my quads before I go on a leg press, and I can perform better on my leg press. So that's the same idea. But again, throughout this, the idea here is your progress is so slow as someone advanced, and we only have so many sets to utilize. How do I make every set more effective? And this is a way that logically would make sense to accomplish that goal. So give combo sets a try. start them just on some isolation exercises on the end. You could do paired exercises on the front end of your sessions. There's lots of utility for this. It's a tool to utilize. But the key here is to look through your logbook. So try adding in combo sets and see if your numbers improve for those exercises that you're doing. And if so, that's great. You actually might find out your volume becomes so much more effective. You could use even a few less sets, which means better recovery. So give them a try. Love to hear what you think, and we'll talk to you next time.